అరే ఉందా ఎగ్జామ్స్ ఎన్ని గంటలకు ఉంటుంది కదా కొంచెము ఇక్కడ కూర్చో చేయి వస్తుంది కూర్చొని తర్వాత నేను చేసుకుంటా తప్పకుండా ఒకటే ఆయన ట్యూస్డే వరకు కూర్చోలేదు వస్తారు 1 మినిట్ 1 మినిట్ నిమిషం కూర్చోవాలి అచ్చా అచ్చా ఉందా నీకు ఎగ్జామ్ ఎన్ని గంటల వెళ్ళారు ఉందా నిమిషం నిమిషం
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji and Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Am I audible, Prabhuji and Mataji?
Hare Krishna
Yes,
Mataji.
Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Is it Samyukta Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
చాలా లేండి ఎలా ఉన్నారు?
బాగున్నాను మాతాజీ, కొంచెం సిక్ అయ్యాను మాతాజీ, అందుకే క్లాస్ అటెండ్.
ఓకే ఓకే. అంటే నేనేమో ప్రిపరేషన్ అంటే ప్యాక్ చేసుకుంటున్నారేమో అనుకున్నాను.
లేదు మాతాజీ, కొంచెం సిక్ అయ్యాను మాతాజీ, హెల్త్
ఇప్పుడు
బాగాలేదు.
ఓకేనా?
ఇప్పుడు ఓకే మాతాజీ.
ఎప్పుడు మాతాజీ వెళ్ళేది?
25th మాతాజీ.
April 25th, right? Yeah. We are gonna miss you, Mataji.
Yeah, Mataji.
Yeah. చేస్తారా మంగళాచరణ్ మాతాజీ? హరే కృష్ణ.
వాయిస్ బాగాలేదు మాతాజీ.
ఓకే. రాజప్రభుజీ. హరే కృష్ణ రాజప్రభుజీ. లలిత్ మోహన్ ప్రభుజీ మీరు చేస్తారా?
హరే కృష్ణ మాతాజీ, ఒక్క నిమిషం ఉంది మాతాజీ.
ఎస్ ప్రభు.
ఓం నమో భగవతే వాసుదేవాయ. ఓం నమో భగవతే వాసుదేవాయ. ఓం నమో భగవతే వాసుదేవాయ. ఓం అజ్ఞానతిమిరాంధస్య జ్ఞానాంజనశలాకయా చక్షురున్మిలితం యేన తస్మై శ్రీ గురవే నమః. శ్రీచైతన్యమనోభీష్టం స్థాపితం యేన భూతలే స్వయం రూపః కదా మह्यं దదాతి స్వపదాంతికం. వందేహం శ్రీగురుః శ్రీయుతాపదకమలం శ్రీగురుం వైష్ణవాంశ్చ శ్రీరూపం సహగ్రజాతాం సహగణా రఘునాథామృతం తాం సహజీవం సాద్వైతం సావధూతం పరిజనా సహితం కృష్ణ చైతన్యదేవం శ్రీరాధా కృష్ణ పాదాన్ సహగణా లలితా శ్రీ విశాఖాన్వితాంశ్చ. हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पति गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते. तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. श्री जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद. हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Mataji and Prabhuji, thank you for joining today's call. Samyukta Mataji, you can start. It's Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita from chapter 70. He would walk in the morning. It's Chalavan Mataji.
Mataji, Mataji.
అయిపోయిందా? మరి మా ప్రభుజీ ఇది పెట్టేటారు.
అవునా? సరే చేయండి మాతాజీ.
జాన్ సిట్టింగ్ క్రాస్ లెగ్ మిస్టికల్ వెస్ట్ అవ్వలే ప్రభుజీ? దట్స్ ఎ గుడ్ గర్ల్ సిట్టింగ్ క్రాస్ లెగ్. యా, దట్స్ ఎ గుడ్ గర్ల్ అయిపోయింది. యా. Thank you, Prabhuji. Mataji, Hare Krishna. Samyukta Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
You can start, Mataji. The highlighted.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sitting cross-legged, his back to the shelf with its assortment of potted plants, a whitish chadara wrapped in wide, loose folds across his body. Prabhupada looked grave, almost sorrowful. The picture and an accompanying article appeared in a June issue of the Village Voice. The article read, "The meeting of the mystical West and practical East comes alive in the curious contrast between A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami and his American disciples. The Swami, a cultivated man of 70 with a distinguished education, is here for a year to preach his gospel of peace, goodwill, nearness to God, and more practically to raise money for his American church, Like his teachings, the Swami is sensible and direct. His main teaching is that mankind may come closer to God by reciting his holy name. Despite the fact that the Swami came to America to seek out the roots of godless materialism, a disease, he said, that has already enveloped India. He is a realistic man. If there is any place on earth with money to build a temple, it is here. The Swami wishes to found in America an international society for Krishna consciousness, which will be open for anyone, including women. Hare Krishna.
మాతాజీ ఇది కూడా చదవండి. హరే కృష్ణ.
Yes, Mataji. The article had been written by Howard Smith. He had first heard of the Swami by a phone call from a contact who had told him of an interesting holy man from India living in a loft in the Bowery. Go there anytime, Howard's contact, and told him he is always there. I think you will find it fascinating. I believe he is about to start a major religious movement. Howard Smith. So I went down there and went upstairs into this very funky artist loft. There were carpets all over the place, old and worn out, and a lot of people sitting around in various kinds of hippie garb, plus what I think they must have thought was Indian garb. Most of them were sitting alone around the room facing the wall like they had nothing to do with each other. They were sitting cross-legged and each one seemed to be doing something different. Nobody paid any attention to me when I walked in. Thank you, Mata.
యాక్చువల్లీ ఇది కూడా అయిపోయింది. షూస్ ఆఫ్. యా జస్ట్ బట్ ఇట్స్ ఓకే. యా యా వాణి మాతాజీ హరే కృష్ణ.
Mataji, Hare Krishna, Mataji.
మాతాజీ హరే కృష్ణ. ధన్యవాద ప్రణామ్. యూ కెన్ రీడ్ మాతాజీ.
Highlighted portion, Mataji.
Yes, yes. Are you able to see?
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw shoes lined up and I thought maybe I was supposed to take off my shoes, but nobody said anything to me. So I walked around the edge of the carpet looking for somebody to pay attention to me. So I wondered what was going on and I didn't want to interrupt anybody because they all seemed deep into whatever kind of prayers they were doing. In the back of the left, I noticed a little curtain, an Indian Madras type of curtain. And so I decided I did peer into that area. I looked in and there was Swami Bhaktivedanta sitting there cross-legged in saffron garments with the markings on his forehead and nose and his hand in the bead bag. Even though he looked like a real thing, he seemed more approachable. And I said, hello. And he looked up and I said, Swami Bhaktivedanta. And he said, yes. I said, I am Howard Smith. I was expecting to sit down. So I said, excuse me, I have to take off my shoes. And he said, why do you want to take off your shoes? I said, I don't know. I saw all the shoes out there. And he said, I didn't ask you to take your shoes off. I said, what are all those people out there doing? And he said, I don't know. And they don't know what they are doing. I'm trying to teach them. And they seem to be misunderstanding me. They are very confused people. Then we sat and talked, and I liked him a lot right away. I mean, I did meet a lot of other Swamis, and I didn't like them too much. And I don't think it's fair to lump them all together and say, those Swamis in India, because he was very, very basic. And that's what I seemed to like about him. He not only made me feel at ease, but he seemed very open and honest. Like he asked my advice on things. He was very new in the country. I thought his ideas stood a good chance of taking hold because he seemed so practical. His head didn't seem in the clouds. He wasn't talking mysticism every third word. I guess that is where his soul was at. But that isn't where his normal conversational consciousness was at.
Yeah. Thank
Then
you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mataji. Will do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Yeah, I'll check. Yeah. Sapan Kumar Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, you can read Prabhuji, the highlighted one.
Then he said several people had told him that the voice would be a very good place to be written up, and that basically it would reach the kind of people who already perhaps had a learning or interest in what he was preaching. And I said that I thought he was correct. He asked me if I had read any books or knew anything about Indian culture, and I said no, I didn't really. We talked a little, and he explained to me that he had these books in English that he had already translated in India, and he handed those to me and said, if you want more background, you can read these. It was obvious to me that I was not talking to some fellow who had just decided that he had seen God and was going to tell people about it. He seemed to be an educated man, much more than myself actually, and I liked his humbleness. I just plain liked the guy. He explained everything I wanted to know, the significance of what he was wearing, the mark on his forehead, the bead bag, and I liked all his explanations. Everything was very practical. Then he talked about the temples all over the world, and he said, well, we have got a long way to go, but I'm very patient. Hare Krishna.
You can read, Prabhuji, these two parents. Yeah. Continue, Prabhuji.
Prabhupada had hoped for what the Voice article had referred to as his American church. There was life in his lectures and kirtanas, and at least he was acquiring a small regular following. But from India, there was no hope. He had continued corresponding with Sumati Morarji, his godbrothers, and the Indian central government, but their replies had not been encouraging. In the faith that Padampat Singhania would agree to his plans for a Krishna temple in Manhattan and finance its construction, Prabhupada had petitioned New Delhi to sanction the release of foreign exchange. He had written to the Reserve Bank of India, New Delhi. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Lalit Mohan Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
You can read Prabhuji, highlighted one.
Yeah. I want to establish this cultural center for this. And for this, I wish to get some exchange from India. I think there are good prospects all over the world for propagating the culture of how to love God in these days of forgetfulness. A month later, the Indian bank advised him to resubmit his request. ఇదంతా అయిపోయింది మాతాజీ actually.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, Prabhuji. But we mali
Yeah,
చదువుతున్నాం కదా అని.
yeah.
Okay.
A month later, the Indian bank had advised him to resubmit his request through the Indian embassy in Washington to the finance minister of Indian central government. Prabhupada had complied, and another month had passed with no word from the government. One of his godbrothers has written that Swamiji should come back to India and work personally to get the government sanction. But Prabhupada didn't want to leave America now. He wrote to Sumati Morarji, I am trying to avoid the journey to India and again come back, especially for the reason that I am holding at the above address classes twice a week and training some American youth in the matter of Sankirtan and devotional service to the Lord. Some of them are taking the lessons very sincerely, and in the future, they may be very good Vaishnavas according to the rigid standards. One day, a curious, unsolicited correspondent wrote to Prabhupada from India. His name was Mukti Brahmachari, introducing himself as a disciple of one of Prabhupada's godbrothers and reminding Prabhupada of their past slight. Mataji, can you please- Yeah, can you please scroll down, Mataji?
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah. Yeah, I will read this one paragraph, Mataji. Thank you. One day, a curious, unsolicited correspondent wrote to Prabhupada from India. His name Prabhu, your voice is echoing, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah, now you can read.
Now it's okay. Yeah. One day, a curious, unsolicited correspondent wrote to Prabhupada from India. His name was Mukti Brahmachari, Introducing himself as a disciple of one of Prabhupada's godbrothers and reminding Prabhupada of their past light acquaintances, Mukti wrote of his eagerness to join Prabhupada in America. Certainly, Prabhupada still had hopes for getting assistance from his godbrothers in India. This mission is not simply one man's work. Therefore, he invited Mukti to come to America and asked him to request his guru to cooperate by working personally to secure government sanction for the release of foreign exchange. Mukti wrote back, reaffirming his eagerness but expressing doubt that his spiritual master would give him permission. Mukti thought he should first come to the United States, and then request his spiritual master's help. Prabhupada was annoyed and he sent an immediate reply. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Is that everyone done?
Prabhuji, I need to read. I just joined.
Please read first.
Is preaching in America my private business? Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wanted to construct some temples in foreign countries as preaching centers of the message of Srila Rupa Raghunath. And I am trying to do this in this part of the world. The money is ready and the opportunity is open. If by seeing the finance minister, this work can be facilitated, why should we wait because you cannot talk with your Guru Maharaj about cooperation because you are afraid your journey will be cancelled? Please do not think in that way. Take everything as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada's work and try to do the needful. Do not think for a moment that my interest is different from that of your Guru Maharaj. We are executing the will of Srila Prabhupada according to our own capacity. A combined effort would have been far better. Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami were two leading disciples of Lord Chaitanya in the 16th century. Mukti submitted the entire proposal before his spiritual master, who, as Mukti predicted, cancelled the trip. Although Mukti's guru was Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, he did not want to be involved and he doubted that Prabhupada would actually get a donation from Padampat Singhania. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, you can read these 3 paras, Mataji.
And now Mukti Brahmachari also doubted if your program is not bona fide, the approach to a big personality will be a ludicrous one, no doubt. On the same day that Prabhupada received the ludicrous letter, he also received the final blow of non-cooperation from the Indian government. Second Secretary Prakash Shah of the Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C. wrote, due to existing conditions of foreign exchange stringency, it is not possible for the government of India to accede to your request for release of foreign exchange. You may perhaps like to raise funds from residents in America. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. It was confirmed. Prabhupada would have to work without outside help. He would continue to alone in the New York City. His last letter was to Mukti Brahmachari reveals his deep faith and determination. So the controversy is now closed and there is no need for help from anyone else. We are not always successful in our attempts at preaching work, but such failures are certainly not ludicrous. In the absolute field, both success and failure are glorious. Even Lord Nityananda pretended to be failure at converting Jiga and Madha in the first attempt. Rather, he was personally injured in such an attempt. But that was certainly not ludicrous. The whole thing was transcendental and it was glorious for all parties concerned. If Krishna consciousness were ever to take hold in America, it would have to be without assistance from the Indian government or Indian financiers. Not even alone, Indian brahmachari would join him. Krishna was revealing his plan to Prabhupada in different way. With the Singhania sanction schemes finished and behind him, Prabhupada would turn all his energy toward the young men and women coming to him in his Bowery loft. He wrote to Sumati Moraji. I'm not trying to incorporate one corporation of the local friends and admirers under the name International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Incorporated. All of his friends and admirers, Prabhupada gave his roommate David Allen the most personal attention and training. He felt he was giving David a special chance to become America's first genuine Vaishnava. Prabhupada would eventually return to India and he wanted to take David to Vrindavana. He would show him temple worship and train him for future preaching in the West. He had requested Sumati Morarji to provide free passage for David as well as for himself. Samyukta Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, you can read them.
Yes, Mataji. You will be you will be pleased to see this American boy. He is coming of a good family and is a sincere soul to this line of culture. There are others also in the class I am holding here, but I wish to take with me only one of them. I am very glad to say Prabhupada said one evening in his lecture that our Mr. David says sometimes, Swamiji, I want to increase my spiritual life immediately. Prabhupada laughed as he imitated David's urgency. Take patience, I tell him. It will be done, of course. When you have got such desire, God will help you. He is within you. He is simply trying to see how sincere you are. Then he will give you all opportunities to increase your spiritual life.
Ingacha.
At first, David and the Swami lived together peacefully in the large hall. The Swami working concentratedly on his side of the partition, David ranging throughout the large open space. David, however, continued taking marijuana, LSD, and amphetamines, and Prabhupada had no choice but to tolerate it. Several times he told David that drugs and hallucinations would not help his spiritual life. But David would look distracted. He was becoming estranged from the Swami. But Prabhupada had a plan to use the loft as a temple, to transform it into New York first temple of Radha Krishna, and he wanted David's cooperation. Although the neighborhood was one of the most miserable in the world, Prabhupada talked of bringing deities from Jaipur of Vrindavana and starting temple worship even on the Bauri. He thought David might help. After all, they were roommates, so there could be no question of David's not cooperating. But he would have to give up his bad habits. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you. Vani Mataji?
Mataji.
Yeah.
Prabhupada was trying to help David, but David was too disturbed. He was headed for disaster, and so were Prabhupada's plans for the loft. Sometimes, even not under the influence of a drug, he would pace around the loft. Other times, he appeared to be deep in thought. One day, on the dose of LSD, he went completely crazy. As Carl Jurgens put it, he just flipped out, and the Swamiji had to deal with the crazy man. Things had been leading to this. He was crazy kid who always took too much. But the real madness happened suddenly. Swamiji was working peacefully at his typewriter when David freaked out. David started moaning and pacing around the large open area of the loft. Then he began yelling, howling, and running all around. He went back to where the Swami was. Suddenly, Prabhupada found himself face to face not with David, nice David, whom he was going to take to India to show the Brahmanas in Vrindavana, but a drugged, wide-eyed stranger, a madman. Prabhupada tried to speak to him. What is the matter? But David had nothing to say. There was no particular disagreement, just madness. Prabhupada moved.
Yeah, you can read, Mataji.
Okay. Prabhupada moved quickly down the 4 flights of stairs. He had not stopped to gather up any of his belongings or even to decide where he would go or whether he would return. There had been no time to consider anything. He had taken quite a shock and now he was leaving the arena of David's madness. The usual group of bums were sitting in the doorway, and with their customary flourish of curiosity, they allowed him to pass. They were used to the elderly Swamis coming in and out, going shopping and returning, and they didn't bother him. But he was not going shopping today. Where was he going? He didn't know. He had come into the street without knowing where he would go.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Deepa Mataji,
Yes, Mataji.
you can read this. Mataji.
Yes, ma'am. He wasn't going back to the loft, that was for sure. But where could he go? The pigeons flew from roof to roof. Traffic rumbled by, and the ever present bums loitered about, getting drunker on cheap poisonous alcohol. Although Prabhat's home had suddenly become an insane terror, the street at its door was also a hellish, dangerous place. He was shaken. He could call Dr. Mishra's and they might take him in, but that chapter of his life was over and he had gone on to something better. He had his own classes, young people chanting and hearing. Was it all over now? After 9 months in America, he had finally gotten a good response to his preaching and kirtan. He couldn't just quit now. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, who everyone knew and respected in Vrindavan as a distinguished scholar and devotee, who had an open invitation to see the Vice President of India and many other notables, now had to face starkly that he had not one friend of stature in the United States. Suddenly, he was as homeless as any derelict on the street. In fact, many of them, with their long time berths in flop houses, were more secure than he. They were ruined, but settled. The Bowery could be a chaotic hell if you weren't on a very purposeful errand, going directly to the store or back to your place. It was no place to stand wondering where will you live or is there a friend you can turn to. He wasn't on his way to Chinatown to shop, nor was he taking a little stroll soon to return to the shelter of the loft. If he couldn't go to the loft, he had no place. How difficult it was becoming to preach in America amid these crazy people. He had written prophetically in his poem the day he had arrived in Boston Harbor. My dear Lord, I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do with me whatever you like, but I guess you have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? What about his scheduled classes? What about David? Should he go back and try to talk with the boy? This had been David's first fit of violence, but there had been other tense moments. David had a habit of leaving the soap on the floor of the shower stall, and Prabhupada had asked him not to because it was a hazard. But David wouldn't listen. Prabhupada had continued to remind him. One day David had gotten angry and shouted at him, but there was no real enmity. Even today's incident had not been a matter of personal differences. The boy was a victim. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Raju Prabhuji, are you there, Prabhuji? You are unable to read, Prabhuji? Are you able to read?
Yeah.
Your voice is low, Prabhuji. Okay, no problem. Sapan Kumar, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Yeah, you can read, Prabhuji.
Prabhupada walked very quickly. He had free passage on the Sindhya lane. He could go home to Vrindavan, but his spiritual master had ordered him to come here. By the strong desire of Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had written while crossing the Atlantic, the holy name of Lord Gauranga will spread throughout all the countries of the Western world. Before nightfall, he would have to find some place to stay, a way to keep up the momentum of his preaching. This is what it meant to be working without government sponsorship, without the support of any religious organization, without a patron. It meant being vulnerable and insecure. Prabhupada faced the crisis as a test from Krishna. The instruction of Bhagavad Gita was to depend on Krishna for protection. In all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. You will pass over all the obstacles of conditional life by my grace.
Continue, Prabhuji.
He decided to phone Karl Jurgens and ask him to help. Hearing the Swami's voice on the phone, it was an emergency. Karl at once agreed that Prabhupada could move in with him and his wife, Eva. Their place was close by on Center Street, 5 blocks west of Bowery near Chinatown. Karl would be right over. After Karl found Prabhupada, they went straight to Karl's place, an airloft smaller than the one Prabhupada had been living in. It had a main living area, large and open, with areas for kitchen and bedroom partitioned off. There were decorative indoor plants and a provision of throw pillows placed all around. Carl's loft was much brighter than the dingy factory life space in the loft on the Bowery. The floor was painted bright orange. Carl used to say it looked like the deck of a ship. The walls and ceilings were white. The light from the 7 skylights filled the room. Carl and Eva settled the Swami in one corner. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Lalit Kumar Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Lalit Kumar
Yes,
Prabhuji.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you can read this 3 paras. Highlight it.
Okay, ma'am. Prabhupada had left his belongings at David's loft and didn't want to go back. So Carl went over to pick up a few essential items. Prabhupada asked him to leave most of his things, including his books, suitcases, and reel-to-reel tape recorder, where they were. Although by this time David had come down from his intense effects of the LSD, he remained crazy. When Carl arrived at the loft, the door was locked and David was inside, afraid to let anyone in. Although finally he relented. He had shut and locked all the windows, making the loft oppressively hot and stuffy. Bill Epstein, who also came by the day, analyzed David as having had a drug-induced nervous breakdown, a narcopsychosis. Psychosis. Okay. And although David was sorry, he had exploded at Swami. Although David was sorry, he had exploded at the Swami. Neither Bill nor Carl thought Prabhupada should live with David again. Apparently, Prabhupada's chances of making the loft into a Radhakrishna temple were finished. Carl and Bill gathered up a few of the Swami's belongings, and David stayed behind in the loft. He wanted to be alone. Carl Jurgens knew Prabhupada's living habits and wanted to accommodate him with a suitable place to live and work. In a small alcove at one end of his loft, Carl had a small study which he allocated for the Swami. Carl also set up a cushioned dais and arranged the living room around it so that guests could sit on the floor in a semicircle. Carl's wife, who didn't really like the idea of Swami moving in, agreed to cover a few cushions with Indian madras material for him anyway. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Yeah, you can read this 2 paras.
Prabhuji ఉన్నారా గిరిరాజ్ ప్రభు ఉన్నారా ఆయన చదవలేదు
చదువుతారు Prabhuji.
Okay. Things went smoothly for a while. Prabhupada continued his morning and evening classes, and many other Bowery hip crowd came by. 3 of his regular callers lived right in the same building, and few others, including Carl's brother, were just around the block. Michael Grant, James Green, even David Allen came once. Don Nathanson, an artist. Okay. I was at Carl's loft, and the Swami comes strolling in one day, so I already knew he was on the scene from David's. Mostly musicians were coming. They were enjoying the private morning session with him. And that's really strange in itself because these people were up almost all night. And he used to do it at 6 in the morning for 1 hour. He would lead them in chanting with his hand cymbals. Da, 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 da. It was strange because the crowd was heavy into drugs and they were well read. But for a short period, they used to go every morning, 9 or 10 of them, and they felt very good about it. They felt very good that they did that in the morning. Okay.
Yeah.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna. ఇంకెవరో జాయిన్ అయ్యారు చూద్దాం.
చంద్రమౌళి Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah, ఈ 2 paras చదవండి.
Carl felt that the creative group who came to see the Swami in his studio were all quick to enter into the mood of the Kirtana, but they were using it in their own ways to supplement their own private visions and strategies, with no real intention of adapting the disciplines or the undivided worship of Lord Krishna. Prabhupada was their first real contact with a prime spiritual person, and yet even without trying to understand, they became absorbed in his kirtanas and in what he had to say. Carl would invite them, "Hey, come on, this is a genuine, this is real. You liked it. You will like it. It's music, it's dance, it's a celebration." Carl saw that people just felt good being in the Swami's presence and meditating on the chanting and eating the Swami's cooking. It was unlike anything that they had experienced before, except maybe for their moments of creative insight. Yet for Carl and Eva, Prabhupada's simple presence created difficulty. Never before during his whole stay in America had he been a more inconvenient or unwanted guest. Carl's studio was arranged for him and his wife to live in alone, using the bedroom, kitchen, and living room any way they liked. If they wanted to smoke marijuana or eat meat or whatever, that was their prerogative. This was Carl's home. He lived here with his wife Eva and their dogs and cats. But now they had to share it with the Swami. Hare Krishna.
You can read, Prabhuji, this spell.
Almost at once, the situation became intolerable for Eva. She resented the Swami's presence in her home. She was a feminist, a liberated white woman with a black husband and a good job. She did not like the Swami's views on women. She hadn't read his books or attended his classes, but she had heard that he was opposed to sexual intercourse except for conceiving children, and that in his view, a woman was supposed to be shy and chaste and help her husband in spiritual life. She knew about the Swami's four rules: no meat eating, illicit sex, intoxication, or gambling. And she definitely did not want Karl Swami trying to change their ways to suit his. And he had better not expect her to wait on him as his servant. She sensed the Swami objecting to almost everything she did. If she were to seek his advice, he would probably ask her to stop taking drugs, get rid of the cats and dogs, stop drinking, and stop contraceptive sex. If the Swami had his way, they would probably eat only at certain times and only certain foods. He was a heavy smoker, so he probably would not like being around her. She was ready for a confrontation.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
लविश लोग जाने लविश लोग
Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण
But Prabhupada, sorry. Yeah. But Prabhupada was not one to make intolerant demands while living in another's home. He kept to his allotted corner of the loft, and he made no demands or criticisms. Had not he seen his host in butler eating meat and only remarked, "Think nothing of it." Nevertheless, his impossible spiritual presence made Eva sorry Karl had ever met him. To Eva, the Swami was an inimical force, and she, being candid and independent, let him know as soon as he asked whether she could bring him something. She replied, "Get it yourself." Carol Baker saw the situation as being extremely uncomfortable and tense. Eva was quite resentful. Eva complained to Carol. Here, she was paying rent for the loft, working hard, and this man was trying to change their way of life. Carol, Eva could not handle his teachings, and she could not handle his influence over Karl. She did not feel so constrained, but she felt that Swamiji was making Karl feel constrained. This was Eva's main objection. The Swami was influencing Karl. Her relationship with Karl had only recently begun, and Karl was aware that she needed much of his time. He agreed with his wife, yet he could not refuse the Swami. He was interested in Indian music, poetry, and religions, and here was a living authority, vastly knowledgeable in all facets of Indian culture. Right in his home, Prabhupada would cook his meals in their kitchen, and right away Karl would be there eager to learn the art of Indian cuisine. Karl also wanted the Swami to show him how to play the drum. They would have long talks together. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Carol, Hall was trying to be something he really wasn't, but he would never have suggested that the Swami had to leave. Swami, I'm sure, was astute enough to pick up on this tension. As soon as he could, he tried to move to another place. Gradually, Kaul reached an impasse in his relationship with Prabhupada. He couldn't share his life with both his wife and the Swami. And ultimately, he was more inclined toward his wife. Kaul, I couldn't see my loft becoming a temple. I was raising cats and dogs, and he wanted them removed. He used to call me a meat eater, but then he changed our diet. Of course, he was hitting the American culture, which doesn't know what all this business is. I have to put it on myself as much as anyone. I could understand and observe India through I could understand and observe India through an impersonal agency like a book or a record. But here was the living representative of God. And to me, it was as difficult as anything I have ever had to do before or since. Prabhupada was not insensitive to the distress his presence was causing. He didn't want to inconvenience to anyone. And of course, he could have avoided all inconvenience, both for himself and for people like Eva, if he had never come to America. But he wasn't concerned with convenience or inconvenience, pleasing Eva or displeasing her. He wanted to teach Krishna consciousness.
Prabhupada had a mission, and Karl Loft didn't seem to be the right base for it. Prabhupada's friends and all agreed he should move more into the center of things. The Bowery and Chinatown were too far out of the way. They would find him a new place. Forced by conditions, he accepted as Krishna's mercy. Prabhupada sat patiently, trying not to disturb anyone, yet speaking about Krishna consciousness day and night. Karl assured him that with half a dozen people searching, it would take long to find a new place, and they would all chip in together and help him with the rent. A week passed, and no one had found a suitable place for Swamiji. One day, Prabhupada suggested that he and Karl take a walk up to Michael Grant's place and ask him to help. Mike, I was awakened one morning very early, and Carl was on the phone saying, Swamiji and I were just taking a walk, and we thought we would come up to see you. I said, but it's too early in the morning. And he said, well, Swamiji wants to see you. They were very nearby, just down the street. So I had to quickly get dressed. And by the time I got to the door, they were already there.
Only now, last paragraphs of this chapter, one devotee read one paragraph for openings.
Samyukta Mataji, ఒక్కొక్క పేరా చదవండి.
Yes, Mataji. I was totally unprepared, but invited them up. The television had been on from the previous night, and there were some cartoons on. The Swami sat between Karl and me on the couch. I was keeping a pet cat, and the cat jumped on Swamiji's lap, and he abruptly knocked it off onto the floor. We began to talk, but Swamiji glanced over at the cartoons on the television set and said, "This is nonsense." Suddenly, I realized that the television was on and that it was nonsense, and I got up very quickly saying, "Why, yes, it is nonsense," and turned it off. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Yeah, Vani Mataji. Hare Krishna, Vani Mataji. It is there?
Mataji.
Yeah, you can read this para. One para we are reading.
Okay. As Prabhupada talked, he tried to impress on Mike how difficult it was for him to live with Carl and Eva. And Mike listened. But was the Swami so sure he couldn't go back to the Bowery loft and live with David Allen? Except for that one incident, it had been a nice setup, hadn't it? Prabhupada explained that David had become a madman from too much LSD. He was dangerous. Mike gave the Swami a half incredulous look. How do you spell this? Incredulous. అదంటే ఏంటి ప్రభుజీ? What does it mean? Half incredulous. Incredible అని చెప్పడానికి half లోనా ఏంటి?
Let me find. I'm just checking.
Okay, half incredulous look. David Allen, dangerous. Prabhupada then told a story. There was an old saying in India. In Prabhuji?
Unwilling అని ఉంది. Unwilling and unable to believe something.
Okay, half credulous. That's how you pronounce it also?
Okay. Half incredulous.
Prabhupada then... Okay, unwilling, okay. Prabhupada then told a story. There was an old saying in India that you get yourself a spiritual master, you sit opposite him, you learn everything from him that you can, then you kill him, you move his body to one side and then you sit in his place and you become the guru. As Prabhupada spoke, Mike began to feel that David was dangerous, so he didn't ask for any more details. Thank you.
Deepa Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, you can read.
Mike could see that Swamiji was appealing to him for help, and they all sat together on the couch. Mike and Carl quietly nodded in agreement. The Swami was looking at Mike, and Mike was trying to think. So how can we help Swamiji? Carl interjected. Mike explained that he was a pianist and he had to practice every day. He had 2 pianos, 2 sets of drums, a vibraphone, and other instruments right there in his apartment. Musicians were always coming over to practice, and they all played their instruments for hours. Also, he was living with a girl, and there was a cat in the apartment. But Mike promised that he would help find the Swami a new place. Prabhupada thanked him, and along with Carl stood to leave. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Sapan Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Mike felt obligated. He was good at getting things done and he wanted to do this for the Swami. So the next day he went to the Village Voice, got the first newspaper off the press, looked through the classified ads until he found a suitable prospect and phoned the landlord. It was a storefront on 2nd Avenue and an agent, Mr. Gardiner, agreed to meet Mike there. Carl and Swami also agreed to come. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Chandramouli Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Chandramouli Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
You can read, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Mr. Gardner and Mike were the first to arrive. Mike noted the unusual hand painting sign, matchless gift above the front window. It was a holdover. Mr. Gardner explained from when the place had been a nostalgic gift shop. Mike proceeded to describe the Swami as a spiritual leader from India, an important author and a Sanskrit scholar. The rental agent seemed receptive. As soon as Prabhupada and Carl arrived and everyone had been congenially introduced, Mr. Gardner showed them the small storefront. Prabhupada, Carl, and Mike carefully considered its possibilities. It was empty, plain, and dark. The electricity had not been turned on, and it needed repainting. It would be good for meetings, but not for the Swami's residence. But at $125 a month, it seemed a promise. Then Mr. Gardner revealed a small second-floor apartment just across the rear courtyard, directly behind the storefront. Under $71 a month, and the Swami could live there. Although first Mr. Gardner would have to repaint it. The total rent would come to $196, and the Carl, Mike, and the others would pitch in.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, Lalit Mohan Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada had the idea of making Mr. Gardiner the first official trustee of the fledgling Krishna Consciousness Society. During their conversation, he presented Mr. Gardiner with a 3-volume set of his Srimad Bhagavatam, and inside the front cover, he wrote a personal dedication and then signed it, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Mr. Gardiner felt flattered and honored to receive these books from their author himself. He agreed to become a trustee of the new Society for Krishna Consciousness and so pay the society $20 a month.
Yeah,
Thank you, Madhav.
Yeah, thank you. Lovish Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Lovish Prabhuji, are you there?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Mr. Gardiner took a week to paint the apartment. Meanwhile, Mike arranged for the electricity and water to be turned on and had a phone installed. And he and Carl raised the first month's rent among their friends. When everything was ready, Mike gave Prabhupada a call at Carl's. Now it was time to move the Swami into his new place. Our new friends who were on hand accompanied the Swami over to the Bowery loft. Maybe they were not prepared to become his surrendered disciples, but contributing towards the first month rent and volunteering a few hours of work to help set up his place were exactly the kinds of things they could do very willingly. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There, at the last.
At the last, yes.
At the loft, they all gathered up portions of the Swami's belongings and then they started out on foot up Bowery. It was like a safari, a caravan of half a dozen men loaded with Prabhupada's things. Michael carried the heavy Roberts reel to reel, and even the Swami carried 2 suitcases. They did everything so quickly that it wasn't until they were well on their way and Mike's arm began to ache that he realized why didn't we bring a car? Like Krishna.
It was the end of June and a hazy summer. A hazy summer sun poured its heat down into the Bowery jungle, starting and stopping. The strange safari, stretching for over a block, slowly trickled along. Prabhupada struggled with his suitcases, past the seemingly unending row of restaurant supply shops and lamp stores between Grand, Rome, and Spring Streets. Sometimes he paused and rested,
Wow.
setting his suitcases down. He was finally moving from the Bowery. His electrician friend on 72nd Street would have been relieved, although perhaps he would have disapproved of the 2nd Avenue address also. At least he was finished deciding on Skid Row. He walked on, past the homeless men outside the Salvation Army shelter, past the open door taverns, stopping at street lights, standing alongside total strangers, keeping an eye on the progress of his procession of friends who struggled along behind him. పెద్ద ఆయనకి ఇదంతా అనేసి
Okay, sir.
జగద్గురు శిలా ప్రభుపాద. I only 1, 2, 3, 4 only. Finish that. Let me finish. Sapan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. The Bowery artists and musicians saw him as highly evolved. They felt that the spirit was moving him and were eager to help him set up his own place so that he could do his valuable spiritual thing and spread it to others. He was depending on them for help, yet they knew he was on a higher level. He was his own protector, or as he said, God protected him.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Lalima Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sanatna. The Swami and his young friends reached the corner of the Bowery and Houston, turned right, and proceeding east, gazing steadily ahead as he walked. Prabhupada saw the southern end of 2nd Avenue, 1 block away. At 2nd Avenue, he would turn left, walk just 1 block northeast, north across First Street and arrive at his new home. As he passed an IND subway entrance, the storefront came into view, matchless gifts. He gripped his suitcase and moved ahead. At 2nd Avenue and Houston, he hurried through a break in the rapid traffic. He could see green trees holding their heads above the high courtyard wall, reaching up like olive green weeds in the space between the front and rear buildings of his new address. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. At last he came.
Yeah.
ఎంత
Heart-wrenching.
కష్టపడ్డాడు.
Yeah. Chala.
Yeah, from the time he left his home, no. From the time he left his guru, he he came to his Guru Maharaj till now. Struggle, అన్ని కష్టాలు అన్ని ఇప్పుడు కూడా చూసారా they would have taken some auto or something like the pickup van or something like that, but the troop of people moving with all the suitcases and luggage, even this also is struggle, Prabhu.
Struggle
To come to this matchless gift shop is also struggle.
సామాన్ పోయడము మనం కూడా చేస్తాం ఇప్పుడు చాలా బరువు ఉంటే ఒక దగ్గర ఆగి రెస్ట్ చేసుకొని మళ్ళీ కాసేపు మళ్ళా పట్టుకొని మళ్ళా పోయి
everything is struggle only till now. We have come across from 1.5 year only struggles.
Struggle is it's not easy.
ఆ మ్యాచ్లెస్ గిఫ్ట్ లో కూడా స్ట్రగుల్ ఉంటుంది ప్రభుజీ. ఇమీడియట్లీ ఇట్స్ నాట్ దట్ హీ సెటిల్డ్ ఇన్, బట్ యాక్చువల్లీ దట్ ప్లేస్ గేవ్ హిమ్ సమ్
process has started at least.
Process, the place started the process of
from here till here the ISKCON will start, na, at least.
Yeah, correct.
From here.
ఎంత టైం పట్టింది.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, do we know if Eva, Carl and Mike, they become devotees or
No, Prabhu, I don't know about anything of these things because I never studied Prabhupada Lilamrita. But let us see. But we have known the characters.
Some of them they do become Prabhuji. Only few వాళ్ళు మధ్యలో వదిలేసి వెళ్ళిపోతారు. I'm not recollecting the name, but mostly those people who started with Prabhupada, Haigriva, those are the names he gave. అందరినీ వారం రోజుల్లోని 2 days లోని 3 days లోని ఇనిషియేట్ చేసేస్తాడు అనమాట. జస్ట్ చెప్పిన మాట విన్నా తను చాంటింగ్ ప్రాపర్ గా చేసిన he would initiate devotees. So as you read it further, you will know all that. That will all come. Amazing it is, but it is very amazing, heartwarming, and it's very teary. When you read it, you really feel like you can't hold your emotions back. It is very, very painful. Only given the fact that he's such an old man who's from Vrindavan in such a pure dham, he's actually put into a place which is nothing is conducive to him. He has to adjust to people who are eating meat, who do not have the basic sense of bathing twice or once a day. So all those things clubbed together makes his existence in that part of the area actually very, very difficult. But he overcomes each one of them. He never used to. He used to wear washed clothes every single day, and he used to dry it in that garden. Sometimes it would be a little wet. He would still wear those clothes. On top of it, he would wear the sweater, and he would always carry his umbrella. So it's very heart touching, Prabhuji.
Yes.
అక్కడ క్లైమేట్ కూడా కండీసివ్ గా ఉండదు కదా బట్టలు ఎండిపోవడానికి. సో అది కూడా దాంట్లో ఉంది.
అదే struggled a lot.
Easy, complete exam. Thank you, Mataji, for sharing. Madhav Mata, I am saying Akinchan Prabhu. Madhav Mata, please complete this paragraph.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. The street side building housed his meeting hall, the rear building the apartment where he would live and translate. Adjoining the storefront building on its north side was a massive 9-story warehouse. The storefront structure was only 6 stories and seemed appendant to the larger building like its diminutive child. On its southern side, Prabhupada's new temple showed a surface of plain cement and was free of any adjoining structure. There was only the spacious lot of the busy mobile service station that bordered on First Street. As Prabhupada approached the storefront, he could see 2 small lanterns decorating the narrow doorway.
Thank you, Mataji. Akinchan
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
End with this last paragraph.
Hare Krishna.
There was no certainty of what awaited him here, but already there had been good signs that these American young people, mad though young people, mad though they sometimes were, could actually take part in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. Perhaps this new address would be the place where he could actually get the footing with his International Society of Krishna Consciousness.
हरि बोल जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद शिला प्रभुपाद लीलामृतम की जय. 1 second, let me sharing my screen. So what is the chapter name? This is a big chapter actually. What is the chapter name? Anybody remember?
Oh, Bhavri.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Bhavri Prabhu.
What chapter we have done with the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita?
Bhavri Prabhu. Am I audible?
Chapter 17.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
Bhavri,
audible to us,
Bhavri.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Are you able to hear me now? Are you able to hear me?
I think Prabhu is not able to hear us.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. We could hear you, but we're not sure whether you can hear us.
So this chapter is a big chapter, okay? Last complete more than 1 week we were in on the Bhavri. Now, this is 1966 time frame. Struggle, yes, everything is struggle. In Srila Prabhupada's life, everything is struggle until he succeed to establish ISKCON and spread the movement and consistently following the path of devotional service. And the last minute, also last final lesson, that is end of his life also, he wanted to help conditioned souls. Yeah, there is one, we all know, right? Who's a wonderful and successor of India's heritage, culture, spirituality. Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is not Vivekananda, not Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. There was one sharing in our group, right? So the most successful man of in US, yes. Successful man of India in America. Okay, thank you so much. So we'll continue with our recitations, but before that, let us. I forgot to recite this one. Bhagavad Gita sloka. Ansini, you just recite once. Recite that sloka. Today is April 2nd, BG calendar. Quickly recite.
कर्मणो ह्यपि बोधव्यं बोधव्यं च विकर्मणा अकर्मणश्च बोधव्यं गहना कर्मणो गति. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is.
Next verse. Karmanya karmaya pashed akarmi cha karmaya sabudhiman manushyesu sayukta krishna karma krit. One who sees inaction, and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. These two verses from Bhagavad Gita 4.17 and 4.18. The intricacies of actions are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is and what forbidden action is and what inaction is. They are the same. Akarma, vikarma, and sakarma. Sakam karma, vikarma, bad karma, and the akarma, no bondage. Krishna-centered activities are no bondage. liberated activities. So action, inaction, and forbidden action. So three kinds of actions described in this 4.17 and 18. Hare Krishna. So we'll continue with the Rudra Gita. So we share. నిన్న ఇదైంది కదా ప్రభుజీ హరే కృష్ణ శక్తిత్రయ సమేతాయ విదూషే అంకురాత్మనే చేతావృతి రూపాయ నమో వాచో విభూత ఇదేనా ప్రభు?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Now, I think all these are over. We should only recite all the 5 shlokas together today.
5 శ్లోకాస్ ఇంకా ఇవి 3 ఉన్నాయి ప్రభు. చేద్దామా? ఇవి చేసినాక చేద్దామా? అయిపో 40 శ్లోకాస్ మధ్య we need to take pause for ఒక 2 శ్లోకాస్.
ప్రభు ఆ 5 చేసాక చేద్దాం ప్రభు.
అయితే ఓకే ప్రభు చేయండి. అయితే ఒక పని చేయండి, జస్ట్ గివ్ మీ మినిట్. అయిపోదు మనం ఇప్పటివరకు చేసిన ఫస్ట్ 6 ఇవి 5 11 5కి చేద్దాం అయితే. ఓకే సో డిలీట్ దిస్ 5 చేద్దాం ప్రభు టుడే అందరితో డిసైడ్ చేద్దాం.
Yeah, I will recite it first ప్రభు, then you all can practice. Okay,
చిన్న పిక్ పెడదాం ప్రభు మెడిటేషన్.
or you will recite with me first. Should I go shloka by shloka?
మీరు ఒక మొత్తం 4 లైన్లు ఒకసారి చేయండి. ఓకే
సరే అయితే 5 శ్లోకాలు ఒకసారి చేస్తాను. ఆ తర్వాత if they wanted ప్రభు they would recite with me shloka by shloka and then they can recite the whole. Okay, I am reciting the whole 5 shlokas together now. सर्वसत्त्वात्मदेहाय विशेषाय स्थवीयसे नमस्त्रैलोक्यपालाय सह ओजबलाय च अर्थलिंगाय नभसे नमो अंतर्बहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय अमुस्मै भूरिवर्चसे प्रवृत्ताय निवृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो अधर्म विपाकाय मृत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्त आशिषाम ईशा मनवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय बृहते कृष्णाय कुंठ मेधसे पुरुषाय पुराणाय सांख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रय समेताय मीथुसे अहंकृतात्मने चेत आकूति रूपाय नमो वाचो विभूतये. Yes. Now you can also repeat it one by one. Giraj Prabhu, you can take the lead, Prabhu.
Yeah, devotees, whoever ready, please recite all the 5 slokas.
Prabhu, for 2 or 5 minutes, I will be in some call, Prabhu. Then I will come back again.
Okay. Sure.
You can lead, Prabhu. You can lead for the whole day today. Thank you.
Okay. So devotees, who are ready, please recite.
I'll do it, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
सर्वसत्त्वात्मदेहाय विशेषाय स्थवीयसे नमस्त्रैलोक्यपालाय सहोजोबलाय च अर्थलिंगाय नभसे नमो अन्तर्बहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय अमुष्मै भूरिवर्चसे प्रवृत्ताय निवृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो अधर्मविपाकाय मृत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्त आशीषाम् ईशा मनवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय बृहते कृष्णाय कुण्ठमेधसे पुरुषाय पुराणाय सांख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रयसमेताय मीधुषे अहङ्कृतात्मने चेत आकूतिरूपाय नमो वाचो विभूतये। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Samyukta Mataji or Vani Mataji.
I'll do Prabhuji.
Okay.
सर्वसत्त्वात्मदेहाय विशेषाय स्थवीयसे नमस्त्रैलोक्यपालाय सह ओजो बलाय च अर्धलिङ्गाय नाभसे नमो अन्तर्बहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय अमुस्मै भूरिवर्चसे प्रवृत्ताय निवृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो अधर्मविपाकाय मृत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्ताशिषामीशा मनवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय बृहते कृष्णाय कुण्ठमेधसे पुरुषाय पुराणाय साङ्ख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रयसमेताय मेधुसे अहङ्कृतात्मने चेत आकुतिरूपाय नमो वाचो विभूतये. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Prabhuji, should I
Mataji.
go?
Yeah. Go ahead.
सर्वसर्वात्मदेहाय विशेषाय स्थवीयसे नमस्त्रैलोक्यपालाय सह ओजो बलाय च अर्थलिङ्गाय नाभसे नमो अन्तर्बहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय अमुस्मै ब्रूहि वर्चसे प्रवृत्ताय निवृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो धर्मविपाकाय मृत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्त आशिषम् ईशा मानवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय बृहते कृष्णाय कुण्ठमेधसे पुरुषाय पुराणाय साङ्ख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रये समेताय मिदुसे हङ्कृतात्मने चेत आकुतिरूपाय नमो वाचा विभूतये. Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Mataji. Yes, thank you, Mataji. Madhavi Mataji. Is there?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah, Mataji. Go ahead.
सर्वसत्त्वात्मदेहाय विशेषाय स्थावीयसे नमस्त्रैलोक्यपालाय सह ओजबलाय च अर्धलिङ्गाय नावसे नमो अन्तर्बाहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय अमुस्मै भूरिवर्चसे प्रवृत्ताय निवृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो अधर्मविपाकाय मृत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्त आशिषम् ईश मनवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय बृहते कृष्णाय कुन्तमेधसे पुरुषाय पुराणाय साङ्ख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रयसमेताय विदुषे अहङ्कृतात्मने चेत आकुतिरूपाय नमो वाचो विभूतये. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Mataji. Thank you very much. So now, Prabhuji, Sapan Prabhu.
हरे कृष्ण। सर्वसत्त्वात्मदेहाय विशेषाय स्थवीयसे नमस्त्रैलोक्यपालाय सह ओजो बलाय च अर्थलिङ्गाय नाभसे नमोऽन्तर्बाहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय मुस्मै भूरिवर्चसे प्रवृत्ताय निवृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो धर्मविपाकाय मृत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्ता आशिषम् ईशा मनवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय बृहते कृष्णाय कुण्ठमेतसे पुरुषाय पुराणाय साङ्ख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रयसमेताय मीतुसे हङ्कृतात्मने चेत आकूतिरूपाय नमो वाचो विभूयते। हरे कृष्ण।
Vibhutaye, Vibhutaye.
अजय आनंद प्रभु जी।
Yes, Prabhu. Chandravar Prabhu. Then Akinchand Prabhu.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु। सर्वसत्त्वात्मदेहाय विशेषाय स्थवीयसे नमस्त्रैलोक्यपालाय सह ओजो बालाय च अर्धलिङ्गाय नभसे नमो अन्तर्बाहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय नामस्मय भूरिवर्चसे प्रवृत्ताय निवृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो धर्मविपाकाय मत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्ते आशीषमीश मनवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय बृहते कृष्णाय कुन्तमेधसे पुरुषाय पुराणाय साङ्ख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रयसमेताय मिदुसे हङ्कृतात्मने चेताकृतिरूपाय नमो वाचो विभूतये हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Cheta Akuti. Akinjam.
सर्वसर्वत्मदेहाय विशेषाय स्थाविषेयसे नमो त्रैलोकाय पालाय सह ओजबालाय च अर्थलिंगाय नाभासे नमो अंतर्बहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय अमुस्मै भूरि वर्चसे प्रवर्ताय निर्वृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो धर्म विपाकाय मृत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्त आशिषामीशा मनवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय वृथाय कृष्णाय कुण्ठमेधसे पुरुषाय पुराणाय साङ्ख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रये समेताय विदुषे हंकरात्मने चेताकृतिरूपाय नमो वाचो विभूतये हरे कृष्ण
Jai. Thank you, Prabhu. Akinjam, Prabhu. Do it.
सर्वात्मदेहाय
Sattva.
सर्वसत्त्वात्मदेहाय विशेषाय सवीयसे नमस्त्रैलोक्यपालाय सह ओजाबलाय च अर्धलिङ्गाय नभसे नमो अन्तर्बहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय अनुष्मै भूरिवर्चसे प्रवृत्ताय निवृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो अधर्म विपाकाय मृत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्ता आशिषामीशा मनवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय बृहते पुराणाय साङ्ख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रयसमेताय मीतुसे हङ्कृतात्मने चेत आकूतिरूपाय नमो वाचो विभूतये
Very good. Thank you, Prabhu. So let me recite at the end. Done. SB 4.24.39. सर्वसत्त्वात्मदेहाय विशेषाय स्तवीयसे नमस्त्रैलोक्यपालाय सह ऊर्जो बलाय च अर्धलिङ्गाय नभसे नमो अन्तर्बहिरात्मने नमः पुण्याय लोकाय अमुस्मै भूरिवर्चसे प्रवृत्ताय निवृत्ताय पितृदेवाय कर्मणे नमो अधर्म विपाकाय मृत्यवे दुःखदाय च नमस्ताशिषामीशा मनवे कारणात्मने नमो धर्माय बृहते कृष्णाय नमो धर्माय बृहते कृष्णाय कुण्ठमेधसे पुरुषाय पुराणाय साङ्ख्ययोगेश्वराय च शक्तित्रयसमेताय मीदुसे कृतात्मने चेताकृतिरूपाय नमो वाचो विभूतये हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Thank you very much. Thank you very much, devotees, for chanting and reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita and reciting Rudra Gita. పంచాకల్పతరుభ్యశ్చ కృపా సింధువైవ చ పతితానాం పావనేభ్యో వైష్ణవేభ్యో నమో నమః. అనంత కోటి వైష్ణవ వృంద की जय. जगद्गुरु शिल प्रभुपाद की जय. जय गौर हरि प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. See you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna.